What's a game without interaction? This lesson, we're going to be adding in keyboard event listeners so that we can create some user interaction into our project. So first of all, we need a few more variables that we need to set up. And we had set up the ones for the basic gameplay area. Let's set up one called player. And then within player, so this is going to be an object as well. And it saves us a little bit of space where we can create one variable that can contain multiple values. Having our speed. So the speed essentially is going to be the width of each one of these elements. And I usually just try to make it dynamic. So right now it's going to be 100. And we can make it dynamic if we want it later on as well. But we know that each one of the movements is going to be a 100 movement, either up or down. And then you could also adjust this accordingly. Starting square, so this is the square position, the square that the player is sitting on. And we know from where we've got our game box and where we added in our player, which was box, that we're putting them in the first square. So we're going to set that square to 1, and then this is also going to adjust as we play the game, also setting our score to 0. So this gives us some variables that we can work with as we build the game out. Next, taking our document object, we're adding another event listener, and this event listener is going to be on key up. So every time the key is up, then we want to launch this function. And we want to listen for the event listener. So that's going to be whatever triggered that event. So if I console log that, and let's just add that other bracket there and refresh. So now whenever I press the key, we see that we've got these keyboard events that are firing off. I can clear that up, and I'm just pressing the arrow keys. So we've got the key is arrow right, the code is arrow right. So we've got all of this key information, and this is all of the information. This is the event, the key up event. We've got which is the keyboard, the key number, the key value. We've got key code, which is also the same as which as well. So we can use either one of those. We could also use the arrow right and so on. And in this case, what we're going to use is key code to do something a little bit different. So sometimes you can use the arrow right as well. So those ones are all just different valid ways to track the key presses. So this is just another option for tracking key presses. So what we want to do is we want to take that key code and we want to pass it in. And also we want to restrict to certain keys. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to allow key and create an object with only the key values that we want to allow. So having our 37 is going to be equal to left, having our 38. So these are all the values that correspond with the key codes. So that's up. And as we saw, 39 is right. And then there's 40, which is the last one, the last movement that we need to track, and that's down. So we want to pass in those values into the console log before we pass it into the function. So we got our allow key, and then sending that in because this is an object. So we've got our E key code, and remember this is the one that's being output there, and we're passing that in. So I'll show you what this is actually going to do. So when I'm going to clear this, and I'm pressing the arrow keys, so that's right, down, left, up, and any of the other keys that I'm pressing, it just comes back unidentified. So we know that if it's unidentified, and that's because it's not within the allowed keys. So if it's unidentified, then we don't want to do anything with it. So next, let's create another variable and another function, and we'll handle key press. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pass this value in. So we can do also a condition to see if allow key, if it exists, then we handle the key press, and we're going to pass that same key code value in. And let's create that function to handle that. Handle key press function, and we're passing in whatever the value of the key is, and console log out that value of key that's being pressed in. So try that one more time. I'll clear that. So if I press space, it comes back unidentified. If I press right, if I press down, if I press left, if I press up, then it goes to that function. So that's exactly what we want. And this is kind of a quick and easy way to restrict certain keys to be the ones that we're listening for. So now that we're passing it into our handle key press, coming up next is where we're actually going to be moving this red box element around the different squares. So that's still to come. So go ahead and add in the ability to listen for the key up event. and then track whichever keys get pressed, pass it into a function, and you're going to be ready to move on to the next step.